Just wondering if you have had any direct contacts with the rebel group HTS, and if you're looking to have direct contacts with them, or are you still going through different channels there, notably Turkey?
I don't have any contacts to speak to from here, and I'm going to refrain. I think, other than speaking at a high level about our priorities and that we have ways to communicate with all of the relevant entities, at least indirectly, in some cases directly. I should note that HTS, of course, is only one of a number of groups who are players in the Syrian political scene. I'm not going to speak to them in detail from here. We have the ability to get messages to every one of the relevant groups inside Syria and let them know what our priorities are. And you've seen the political principles that we released today that we think ought to guide the transition process and formation of a new government. But we have, of course, other priorities as well: the return of Austin Tice, ensuring that ISIS can't use this opportunity to seize new territory and launch attacks on American interests, preventing the conflict from spilling over beyond the borders of Syria to neighboring countries. We have the ability to make those concerns known to all of the groups, but I'm not going to speak to individual contacts.
But can you say that you're looking to have direct contacts with what you actually, is designated as a terrorist group?
So just to confirm one thing I spoke to yesterday, there is no legal barrier to us speaking to a designated terrorist group. We have the authority to do that under U.S. law. That said, I'm just not going to get into individual conversations. We have made clear, I'll leave it at this. We have made clear to all the relevant parties inside Syria what our priorities are, both in the immediate term and what our priorities are over the intermediate term for the transition process and the formation of a new government.
Now, just a question. The Secretary called for an inclusive process, non-sectarian, protecting minorities, pretty high, ambitious goals. How do you plan to use your leverage as the United States to get those effectively done and have the rebels group form a government that is respecting those criteria?
Let me speak to this really in three buckets. First of all, is just to say that it is important. I will get to the question about U.S. influence and how we can use our influence in this question. But it is important to remember, first and foremost, that this needs to be a Syrian-led process. And is not one that can or should be imposed from outside Syria by any country, by any foreign party. That, of course, includes the United States and includes other countries in the region as well. That's the first thing that I think bears always repeating when it comes to discussing this issue. The second thing is we are going to consult with our partners in the region, as the Secretary already has been by phone, to try and drive alignment on some of the principles that you saw us outline, because we think it's important that all parties sign up for these principles. We think they're principles that really should gather widespread support inside Syria and outside Syria as well. And then third, look, as I said in response to Matt's question, the U.S. has imposed a number of sanctions on Syria. We have suspended diplomatic relations with Syria. We have made quite clear for some time that Syria should not be treated as a normal country. You saw us object to the readmission of Syria to the Arab League before Assad had taken any of the steps that the Arab League and other countries had called on him to take to engage with other political actors inside Syria. So we have all of those various authorities and abilities at our disposal, and we will make clear to all of the relevant actors inside Syria that these are the kind of steps that we want to see them take before we consider a change in United States policy.
Okay. And just last question, how do you square, you said that it has to be a Syrian-led process inside Syria. How do you square that with the fact that everyone in the region and outside is involved right now precisely in this process?
So first of all,
Syrian-led when you have Turkey on one side?
So it is a great question, and the real answer to it is that you don't start from zero with this. All of the actors inside Syria, all of the actors inside the region have to deal with the long history of what came before. And there's been a very brutal civil war in which you had a number of internal actors, at times supported by external forces as well. And all of that needs to be dealt with going forward. But that's why we outlined these principles, to make clear that despite everything that has preceded where we are today, what principles ought to guide the formation of a new government going forward are kind of the opposite of what Bashar al-Assad used to guide the country and led us to this situation. So respect for minorities inside the country, the facilitation of humanitarian assistance, something that we saw the Assad regime block on a number of different occasions, the prevention of Syria being used as a base for terrorism or a threat to its neighbors. All of those are principles that we think are important, as well as I said, the other countries refraining from external interference.
Can I follow up on
Go ahead.